He played at the historic Rossonian, which is across the street. He played with his stogie everywhere he went.
The first one I ever learned was the blues in B flat.
Bassist Charles Burrell's charm, talent, and infectious smile have been his trademark his entire life. He started lessons on the string bass and tuba when he was 12 years old. One night, he tuned his crystal radio to a San Francisco Symphony broadcast. The conductor was Pierre Monteau. That performance changed his life. Charles says it was at that exact moment he decided to become a professional musician and the first black musician in the San Francisco Symphony. Born in Toledo, Ohio in 1920, he grew up in Detroit, or Destroy.
That's what we used to call it. But that's where I got my basic training for music, because I went to one of the most famous high schools, I guess, in the country, which is called Cass Tech.
Charles graduated from high school in 1939 and continued his education in Michigan.
I went to audition for a college called Wayne University, and I had so much good training at Cass Tech until they would let me in Wayne University without an audition, and that was the beginning of my big career for life. And after getting to the prime of my life in Wayne University, coming up to graduation, I was called in a room by one of the men who ran the school, and he was commenting me and praising me on my ability and what I had done. And I almost got tears in my eyes because I thought it was so great. And then he pulled the plug on me. He says, I'm 40 years old, and as long as I'm here, there'll be no Negroes in the music department in any of the public schools, and that just blew my whole thing.
At age 16, he learned that despite his talent, he would still be judged by the color of his skin. But Charles continued to pursue his passion while making ends meet by working odd jobs at restaurants and nightclubs. That's where he really learned how to play the bass and developed his own style.
But that was the beginning of a real, I think, a tremendously fruitful career for me.
Charles started his first orchestral career with the then Denver Symphony in 1949. He was the first African American to receive a permanent contract with a major American symphony and is often referred to as the Jackie Robinson of classical music. Then, in 1959, he was hired by the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. At Charles's first rehearsal, a guest conductor entered the stage, Pierre Monteau, the conductor he'd listened to as a child years before.
When I first walked out on the stage and the conductor introduced me to the orchestra, they stood and gave me applause, and I cried because I'd never been treated so well in my life. You know,
In San Francisco.
In San Francisco, it was like, hey, you know, and they all wanted to take me out to lunch. I mean, everyone. I was so enamored of what was going on. I think it took me a month to get over that feeling of, I just can't imagine why they're doing this, you know.
After 5.5 years with the San Francisco Symphony, Burrell returned to Denver and embarked on a 30-year journey with the Denver Symphony.
My mother was born here, and her name was Denverado.
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 Your mother's name.
Denverado, and she was a saint above saints.
Got it.
You know, and a disciplinarian like we never had in life. She had 7 children and a raunchy husband who laid out with the what they call pimps and whores. Pardon my French, but that was his thing.
So in Denver, now you're a young man, you've got a little experience under your belt, having worked with the San Francisco Symphony. Did you ever meet Benny Goodman?
Oh, yes, I did. That was a real trick.
Because Benny was doing some things with symphony orchestras. And
Yeah,
so
he was
coming to town.
He was here playing with the orchestra. I'll never forget, he was playing the Mozart Clarinet Concerto. He played with the orchestra the first half, and then the second half, after intermission, I'm in the bass section, he started playing the And my stand partner leaned over me and says, "Charlie, I think it's dying in the vine."
It's dying in the vine?
That meant it wasn't going well, but he was playing by himself. So I had the presence of mind, it was spontaneous, hit me. I picked my bass up and walked through the orchestra. I went up to the front, good Benny Goodman, and I started playing the chord changes to the song that he was playing. I never was so surprised in my life. He looked at me and said, and after the beginning, we played the whole second half, me and Benny Goodman. He said, "Where did you learn to play like that?" And I said, "From one of your students, you know." He said, "Well, thank you. I never forget it because he gave me $100. And boy, that was money. Ooh, I took the wife out, I think, in 9 days in a row. $100.
You know, the 5 Points in this area in our community, as a lot of people in the jazz world know, good music, good people attract good musicians, and equals good time generally. 5 Points have that reputation, and I'm sure that you got around a little bit to some of the places here.
Best soul food I've ever had in my life was on 5 Points. And down on the corner where the bank is now,
Wells Fargo is now?
Wells Fargo is called the Ritz. And that was the best place in the world to get what we call grits at the Ritz. But the big thing about 5 Points is the fact that you had the best food in the world. And I'll tell you one specific incident was what they call pig ear sandwiches.
Yes.
And there's a lady,
Zona?
Zona's pig ear not sandwiches, but sandwiches.
Sandwiches, yes.
Yeah, you know. And every musician in town used to stop there after work.
5 Points holds a special spot in Burrell's heart, not just because of the food back in the day, but also because he performed at the Rossonian Hotel. He was the top on-call jazz bassist in Denver for more than 50 years.
You'd say, "Oh, there's Charlie, the coolest ass in town."
Charles Burrell, truly a music treasure and a living music legend.
Oh, but